Hello, my friends. If you're an instructional designer who is trying to stand out in an AI-driven world, then there's one kind of portfolio project that checks all the boxes. It showcases your skills with AI, it solves a real-world problem, and it's way more attention-grabbing than an info dump e-learning course. If you haven't figured it out by now, I'm talking about CustomGPTs. And in this video, I'll show you exactly what they are and how to create one. I'll also share an easy-to-use template and dive really deep into a real-world example. All right, so it's 2025. It's time to show off some AI skills in your portfolio, right? Part of the reason for that is because employers want to see this AI proficiency. I want to show you this role that just got filled in the past couple of weeks, AI learning and enablement lead. Check out this role, and if you're interested in learning and development and AI, tell me this isn't like a perfect opportunity. Feel free to pause this if you want to read it. But these roles are going to be popping up more and more in the months and years to come as orgs try to get their people on board with AI. And as a learning professional, you want to be able to help fill that gap. Also, not to fearmonger or anything, but if you're not using AI, you are already getting left behind. We're kind of past the point where people are just getting started. And again, not saying this to fearmonger and say, oh, you're going to be out of a job tomorrow or something like that. But just from a quality of life perspective, if you're not using AI in your daily life, you're kind of operating at a disadvantage. My team and I, we use AI across every aspect of the business. I use it for so many things in my personal life too, like a lot of health related stuff that has been really life-changing for me. So in general, some of the skills that you'll use building this project as you work on some prompt engineering, it's going to help change your life, not just help you stay employed. And then also custom GPTs are the perfect way to showcase AI skills alongside your instructional design proficiency without having to spend months learning how to code. So this I've been saying this in the bootcamp workshops now for like 6+ months. We have some students working on these. This is the best place to start. It's where you can really refine your AI prompt that you're going to use to power some kind of learning experience. And then if you want to, build out a more thorough learning experience, integrate it into Storyline, for example, you'll have opportunities to do that. But this is hands down the best place to start. If you're already comfortable with prompting, you could have a project like this done within a couple of days, if not sooner. So what are custom GPTs? I'll tell you what they are, but first I will show you what they are. So this looks just like ChatGPT, right? But this is a custom GPT that I built for learners in our Instructional Design Project Lab course to try to identify a business goal. So notice that if I'm like, hi, how are you? This isn't just normal ChatGPT. This is Sarah Kim, Director of Customer Experience, and we're here to support her with a potential learning solution. She has 20 minutes. What would we like to know? So you could tell this isn't normal ChatGPT. This is a custom GPT. So we were able to customize the underlying ChatGPT models to follow our specific prompts, and then we can make that available to our learners so that they can have a very custom experience based on our learning goals. So that's just a little demo. I'll of course dive deeper into this with you as we go. But a custom GPT is essentially a tailored AI assistant built on top of ChatGPT. You can customize its personality, tone, and behavior. You can even customize its role, like who it's speaking as. You can give it knowledge so that the learners can access specific company-specific knowledge or information instead of just the default ChatGPT knowledge. And you can use it to simulate scenarios. You can use it to coach learners or answer questions based off of, again, a specific knowledge base. So we're going to dive deeper, but these are really good projects because they showcase your AI fluency. So, right, they show that you can write a solid prompt to guide ChatGPT in this very specific way. And most importantly, too, this is what hiring managers are looking for when they are looking at portfolios. You can show how you can create a custom GPT to solve a real world business problem. So how are you actually solving a real world learning gap with this custom GPT? That's where they really shine, especially because, it doesn't have to be some huge 3 to 6 month coding lift. It's all about writing a solid prompt, and then the platform to actually create the custom GPT is extremely easy to use. That's a huge benefit of this too, is improving your prompt engineering skills. If you're getting started with AI or don't feel super confident with your prompting yet, this is the perfect place to practice and go through that prompt engineering experience of writing a prompt, testing it, refining it, testing it, refining it, testing it, putting in front of your audience to test it more, refine it further. It's a very iterative process, and the sooner you get comfortable with that, the better. And those are skills that definitely can improve, and it will make writing your next prompt even easier. So yeah, in my opinion, this demonstrates the perfect combination of AI plus instructional design skills. If you're thinking through how you can use this AI technology to solve a real world learning/performance gap, and then you can highlight that on your portfolio, that checks all the right boxes. It's going to be gold, and you're going to have a big leg up on these AI forward learning and development roles. And again, it can take hours or days, not months or years. So let's dive into some use cases, right? So role-playing practice is a big one. So if you want to train some customer service agents, or if you want to help people practice for interviewing for a specific role, any situations like that, it will do really well with, especially if someone needs to practice in like a chat environment. So like a perfect use case for this is if you're training like chat agents who have to have chats with customers. This is so perfect because the practice environment where we're chatting with this custom GPT is going to be very similar to the chat environment with a customer. So a little more so than if you were on like a live call talking to someone, for example, because right now, it works best with text. So yeah, people need to build their confidence with soft skills or processes they need to follow. You can create a custom GPT where they can practice that in a nice risk-free environment. Also on-demand knowledge bases for employees. So if employees need to be able to reference information very quickly while they're on a call, for example, or while they're trying to, perform some niche task that they need to pull niche knowledge for on demand, this would do really well for that because you can upload knowledge bases. And then also, if people are learning new skills or needing mentors, going through a new job role transition or something like that, you can create a custom GPT to provide that ongoing support, help contextualize the stuff that they're encountering, help them problem solve. So again, it's like a 24/7 always on AI assistant that you can tailor to your needs for your audience. So if you've been watching, if you're a regular follower of the channel, these aren't really new to you. You may have already seen some of these. So you've seen probably the Become an Instructional Designer AI assistant, as well as the Learning Objectives Generator. So the Become an ID one is like trained on our process to help you become an ID, and it guides people through that. It's really encouraging, helps them portfolio feedback, all sorts of stuff like that. And then the Learning Objectives Generator one helps generate these like actionable, measurable, meaningful learning objectives because the default ChatGPT wasn't doing too great with that and would give like understand and some fluffy ones. So over the past couple of years, I've done videos on those ones. I'll link those in the description if you want to check them out. But the new one, and the one I'll dive deep with you today, is this one for the Instructional Design Project Lab course. So this course is where people basically go through the simulated instructional design process from A to Z. So they get practice doing some analysis, some instructional design, writing some storyboards, some design docs, doing some evaluation of data. So we're trying to make it very, very realistic where it feels like you're actually getting on the job and getting to do this nice, realistic practice along with some guiding videos. Now, originally, I'm currently reworking the first project in the Instructional Design Project Lab. We've had a first draft live for a while now, but we're going to make it even more immersive. And in the first version that's currently live, we have students listen to a conversation between a project manager and a business stakeholder, and the learner's trying to piece down the information and write the business goal from that conversation. Based on, we got some feedback where learners want to be more involved in this process. They want to practice asking the questions to identify the business goal, right? They want to build their confidence talking about metrics and uncovering these metrics from stakeholders who might not be just giving them super willingly and freely. So we thought the perfect use case for that, especially for the next iteration of this, is a custom GPT, right? We could train a custom GPT to act as one of these business stakeholders, be a little bit cagey with the metrics, and then it gives the learner the opportunity to ask professional, respectful, insightful questions to draw out that information and identify the business goal in a much more hands-on, interactive way. So that's what we're trying to solve here. I could show you it as well. So let's see. So to actually create a custom GPT, I should probably show you that. You can go over here to the GPTs. So you log into ChatGPT, go over here to GPTs on the sidebar, and then you can click on this create button right here in the top right. So you will need to be on their paid plan to do this. If you're not on their paid plan, I will show you some easy alternative options that are just as good. So I'll show you that a little bit later. But this is where I went to actually edit the one that I'm currently working on. So identify the business goal for Chic Avenue. Chic Avenue is this fictitious company we are supporting during this learning experience. And it might be on this create tab when you first go to create it, but just go to the configure tab. It gives you much more specific controls. And then you can obviously name it, give it a description, and then give it instructions. This is where the magic is happening. This is where you're essentially guiding how ChatGPT should act for everyone who interacts with this custom GPT. Just I guess a quick intro to the interface. These conversation starters will just show up as like buttons over here. So for this one, I don't want any specific conversation starters, but I just want to show you what that looks like. Basically, if the user clicks this, it will send it as a message to the custom GPT. I'm just going to leave it open-ended though, and prompt the user to submit a message down there at the bottom. Knowledge, this is where you can upload files, and like if you were creating a knowledge-based custom GPT, for example, you could upload a bunch of files here, and then when the user asks a question, it will reference those files and find the most relevant pieces of information based on the user's query. Recommended model, I wouldn't get too worried about this. If you want, you could just default it to GPT 4.0 or 4.1. You don't have to recommend it though, and that will just keep it to the most updated one or whatever one the user prefers to use. 4.0 is a pretty good default though if you want to default. And then these are these different capabilities, right? This can let it search the web. We don't need that turned on. Canvas, that's like if, a little sub document within the chat. We don't need that for this case either. We also aren't going to need any images generated, so I'm going to turn all of these off. Code interpreter will let it analyze like files and stuff like that. I do not need this for my custom GPT, so I'm going to leave that off. And then actions are a bit more advanced. If you're comfortable working with APIs, you can have your custom GPT communicate with other applications. We do not need that here though. So we just want to focus on the prompt. That's all you're really going to be focusing on if you're building like a role-playing scenario like this. So you can expand this, and this is essentially what you're going to be iterating on is text. So on the one hand, it's nice and easy, right? You don't have to deal with any multimedia, visual design, nothing crazy like that, but you will need to really refine your prompt to make sure that it's effective. I'm going to hop over to this Google Doc since it might be a little easier for y'all to see, but this is essentially just copied and pasted from those instructions. So notice this structure I use. So I use 2 hashtags to basically say this is like a heading 2. And then I have this template here. So I tell the AI what its role is. And this is a little bit of an advanced strategy that I use here. So I say, you are a world-class trainer who specializes in helping instructional designers practice their soft skills and business acumen so that they can better identify business goals and tie their efforts to real-world metrics. So notice I'm not saying, oh, you're Sarah Kim, this project owner, this business stakeholder. I'm saying, you are the person who really is going to be helping our audience get better at these skills. And I'm very specific and descriptive about that, as you can see. And then this is the strategy that's a little more advanced. I say that this world-class trainer is the one who's role-playing as Sarah Kim, the project owner for a project at Chic Avenue. So I find that for role-playing scenarios, this separation is really helpful because you're going to want to obviously have like the character, the role-played character who can have a specific personality, specific way that they act to potentially make it challenging for the learner. Like for example, you're going to see Sarah Kim might be a little bit reserved. She might not share details that don't need to be shared. The learner needs to ask questions to draw that out. But then we also want to make sure that the learner can get this valuable feedback, right? We want them to be getting evaluated on their performance so that they can get feedback so they can do better. That's why I bring in the trainer. That's why I separate the AI's personality, if you will. Or I tell them, right, you are this trainer because this person will be able to give really good instructional design feedback, right? And I might sound a little weird talking about AI as a person, but that is a really helpful way to think about it. When you're writing when you're writing the role part of your prompt, who do you want your AI to be? Try to imagine them as a real life person who would be able to give the best feedback and make this project work most effectively. That's kind of what guides my thoughts here. So again, that trainer who can give that great feedback, that's the one who's going to be role playing as Sarah Kim, the project owner for a project at Chic Avenue. It's a fictitious company, right? So I'm giving it a little bit of context. And then I use this goal section. So evaluate how well the learner can ask good questions and uncover the business goal. Also, provide a realistic practice simulations for learners to get realistic practice. And then I talk about the audience. The user is a current or aspiring instructional designer who likely does not feel confident navigating tough conversations with stakeholders. The user likely knows some learning theory. So again, you can give some background here. I also want to mention I've made all of this available in this project guide for you. So I'll link to this in the description, but yeah, just hopping over here, I do share this template with you. So I share some guidance. I also share the full prompt. So you notice I shared this example for this roleplay template. I know a lot of people have these really good roleplay ideas. I was hoping this example would help guide you in the right direction. So, that's the audience, the rules. This is where it's like the very specific, think about like game rules or like rules of the interaction, right? These are really hard rules, as I'd say. So always begin the conversation in character as Sarah Kim. Respond to the user's questions as Sarah Kim. Never give away all key details on the first question. Ensure the learner has to ask targeted follow-up questions to identify the business goal, right? This is the whole point of the practice. We don't want it to be too easy. We don't want them to give away too much. If the learner proposes a suitable version of the business goal or is fairly close, you can end the roleplay scenario and speak in your own voice as the world-class trainer. You will provide feedback on the learner's performance and share actionable insights on how they could do better. So again, this part is really important, right? So we want the learner to basically say like, okay, so it sounds like the business goal is this. Does that sound good to you? And if they can do that and it matches the business goal in this prompt, that's when the game essentially ends and we go back over to the coach voice and give that helpful feedback. I will say that, as part of my iteration, the feedback at one point was a little random. Like they were giving feedback on, they were like, oh, make sure you also ask about like this other thing in the prompt that wasn't very important. So I had to update the prompt. So notice this bar right here. Ensure that your feedback is rooted in the criteria listed below. Do not share irrelevant feedback. So that's just one of those examples I'm pointing out where like as I'm testing, I also need to iterate on the prompt. And I'm sure there's room for more iteration here too. Just yesterday, I shared it with people in the bootcamp in the academy and asked them to go through it. So yeah, the iteration is going to be an ongoing process. I'm not saying this prompt is perfect, but it works pretty well. If it seems like the learner is going down the wrong path, okay, this is something else I had to add. Or if the learner acts rude or unprofessional, feel free to append a note from coach after Sarah Kim's dialogue within the same message. So I'm trying to be really specific here because sometimes it was just doing note from coach, but you don't get Sarah Kim's dialogue. So I'm trying to be really specific. This note can include some light guidance to bring the learner back on track. So yeah, the idea there is like if the learner really seems a little lost or is going off track, we are giving the coach permission to step in and share some guidance. And then guidelines. So these are like softer rules, essentially, is how I think about it. It's like, this is where like personality stuff can come into play. While role playing as Sarah Kim, keep the tone formal and to the point. Sarah's time is valuable and she wants to be understood quickly. So I'm trying to emulate that, like high pressure, no nonsense. Like we're here for a specific goal. I'm an executive, right? I have a lot of stuff going on. That's the idea here. Sarah Kim will be vague unless prompted more directly. And this is where I want that realistic practice to come in, right? So for example, we need your CSAT score to rise a bit. And then when asked about the desired performance, or we need to meet the industry standards soon when asked about the timeline, give the learner opportunities to ask deeper follow-up questions. So yeah, if you're designing a role play scenario, you're definitely going to want to have stuff like this. You want to add in these guidelines and stuff to make it more challenging and give a bit more challenge so the learner has an opportunity to learn a bit more deeply. And this is the one that I had to add. If Sarah Kim feels like her time is getting wasted or she's getting disrespected, she can acknowledge this and end the call. The reason I had to do this is because, I'm testing the prompt out in different ways. And in some of them, I was just being really obnoxious. I was like, oh, this doesn't sound so important. Oh yeah, I don't think I need help with this. And then Sarah Kim was like, just really entertaining it for way longer than a real life person would. So I had to add this in to make it a bit more realistic. Cause I'm like, we want to keep things realistic here. And then when providing coach feedback, be friendly and encouraging. Learners may not have a lot of confidence with this, so it's up to you to help them build that confidence and imagine how they can apply their skills in a real world business context. So this is helpful stuff too, right? For that coaching voice, we're going to want that to be very different than that, terse, Sarah Kim voice. And then coach feedback should always be based on the criteria. I'm just reinforcing that again here. Here's where I have my criteria. So how are they actually being evaluated? Again, if you're going to have a coach doing some evaluation, you definitely want to have the criteria here so it's not random, right? You want to try to maintain some control over what you're trying to help people do. So we want learners to ask questions to reveal the following information: the appropriate metric to use, right? The specific measurable gap that needs to be closed, the time frame, the job role that needs to adjust their behavior, and then the thing or category of things that agents need to do better. So this is kind of aligned with Kathy Moore's action mapping goal. Learner must be professional, appropriate, and respectful. Learner should not ask irrelevant questions. Rapport building questions are okay. And then the learner must propose a business goal to successfully complete the scenario. This is where I share some context. So again, your context might look very different for you, but I want to make sure that the role play scenario, the Sarah Kim in the scenario, isn't contradicting data that users have already revealed in the course, right? We obviously want to keep it consistent and immersive. We don't want this to just feel like something random. So I gave it some data that, the learners sort of already uncovered in their analysis by reviewing some data. I need to change this. So just giving some background information there. You can read this if you'd like. I also separated this out as its own heading, the correct business goal, since this is quite important. So notice too, I shared this template with you, but you can always pull out additional headings if there's enough relevant information or important enough information to justify its own heading. So since this is like what the successful completion of this experience is hinging upon, I wanted to make sure that the AI was able to reference this very clearly and directly. So there we go. That is the prompt. If you have any questions about this, feel free to drop a comment. I think it's self-explanatory enough in this template I shared with you. Role, goal, audience rules, guidelines, criteria, context. And then I have this piece here too, where you can share additional context with additional headings if needed. And there we go. You have the full template, so you can see exactly how I handled these pieces. And then, if you want to experience it for yourself, I also shared a link to this. So this is just like my paraphrase version of Kathy Moore's goal template. So a metric will increase or decrease by a certain amount within a specific time frame. So test it out. You can, maybe be annoying, try different personalities with the bot. Test it how you want. Any feedback, of course, will be welcome. Let's talk about choosing your own project idea. So you want to think of a real world scenario where one of the following is true. People need help practicing a specific soft skill. People need help accessing specific information quickly, or people need support as they learn a new skill or navigate a new job role. So if you can identify one of these, it's a really good use case for a custom GPT, and then you can justify why you created it based on that need. All right. Oh, and then also I want to give a shout out to Eva, who's in the academy. Eva's working on a custom GPT that's going to be quite helpful for people as well, where it helps people convert like teacher or K through 12 education language into more corporate ID language. And it's essentially giving like simulated instructional design interview practice. So you're basically role playing where you're talking to an interviewer and you practice using corporate instructional design terms more so than education heavy jargon. So I want to shout that out. Maybe we'll do a future video on that once that project is all the way ready. So you already know where you can download the prompt template. I'll share that in the description. If you're not on the $20 a month plan with ChatGPT, you're not going to be able to publish it directly through there, but you can still test your prompt. So you can basically work on your prompt in a Google Doc like this, head on over to ChatGPT, the free version, paste in your prompt, and you can press enter. The only difference is like Sarah Kim will like say something here first instead of us starting the conversation, and then we can practice just like we would otherwise, right? After we've practiced a little bit and we're like, okay, we need to change the prompt, right? We make our updates back over here in the doc, copy it all again, go over here, and we can do a new chat, paste it again, and that's the way we can test it. If you are in the, one of the courses, I'm happy to publish it for you. So we can publish it for you, and we'll just name it whatever you want it to be named by your name. The byline will still say like our account's name, but again, in the title, we'll make sure we put your name just if you want to be able to get it out there and share it with people. Maybe they'll make this free in the future. Also, a lot of orgs have Microsoft Copilot Studio. It's not nowhere near as good as ChatGPT for powering these assistants, but yeah, you can, if your org has this, you can check out Copilot Studio and you can create a custom GPT essentially with Copilot. Again, it's just the quality isn't as good, but it will probably make just as good of a portfolio project if you can swing that. Okay, so let's talk about the write-up, right? So creating a solid project that lets people, that people can experience, that's great and all. Speaking of which, I should probably show you how to share it, right? So I'm gonna hop back over here. So once you're done creating this, you've given it a name and everything, you can click on the share button or create or whatever it's called, and then you can change the access. You can even publish it to the store, to the GPT store, and that makes it available for like everyone to search and find and access. So I just wanted to show you that there's like a, what is it? Is it a create button? Yeah, create button. So just click that, you'll check out the settings, and then you'll be able to generate a shareable link once it's published. Cool. Okay. So write-ups. So the write-up is 50% of the project on your portfolio, right? The project itself, that's half of it, but we also want that nice landing page where you can read about the process you took to complete it, what problem it's solving. And for a project like this, that's going to be especially powerful because you're showing how you're using AI to solve a real world problem. So you're going to have an overview where you say what the project is. You're going to talk about the problem, right? What real world performance problem justified this? What are people having a hard time with? How is it impacting the organization? And then how does your custom GPT solve the problem or help solve it, right? What results are you expecting? How did you go about actually designing it, right? How did you iterate on the prompts? Who did you put it in front of to test it? How did you refine it? What refinements made the biggest impact? And then getting into impact, what results do you expect to see once this goes out to your target audience, or what results have you seen? This is also a great place for testimonials if you do have some people in the audience that you can share it with and get their feedback on it. Maybe they could write you a little review. And then you want to include demos or screenshots throughout. For example, if you're saying, talking about how you want to handle that use case where people might be being unprofessional or rude, obviously that will have big consequences in the real world. So maybe you show a screenshot of how, you're testing it by being rude to it, and you show how your prompt refinement nipped that right down and ended the conversation and gave some really valuable feedback on how you need to be more professional. So those kind of pieces will do really well in a write-up. And it's going to prepare you to talk through a project like this in an interview. And I have that template here with a bit more details that you can download. Again, if you want to check that out. If you want some additional support, if you are in the courses, we do go live. I personally go live every Wednesday with these AI workshops. That's where I've been coming to a lot of these realizations and identifying, what portfolio projects will be best. So yeah, if you're in our courses, make sure you come to those. I'd love to see you there. I'll help you come up with your custom GPT idea, and we'll take it even further if you'd like. And then also, if you're not in the courses yet, we do have a new offer launching on July 14th. It's called Devlin Peck Pro. It basically gives you access to all of our courses, all of our workshops, personalized feedback on all of your projects in your portfolio. It's going to be at a much lower price, and there's going to be a free trial so you can try it before you buy. So we've never done something like this. Our team's very excited about it. We're going to do like a week-long little launch where you can get in there for free and just basically see all of our course content, get some feedback. I'm really looking forward to it. So mark your calendar for July 14th, and I will see you in there.